Hello everybody. If you're wondering what I've been doing since the last time I uploaded a video, I've been busy. If what I've been doing pans out, I'm going to become a legend. If it doesn't, well, I just wasted some time. Anyway, in my last video, or one of the last of my videos, you saw me make the hub in this wheel. I don't know whether it is visible on the camera, because I'll be seeing this when I'm editing the video. But this is the mini driver hub with the cassette I've been using for the last 3 or so months. This is 12 to 21 and it's been brilliant. So brilliant in fact that I am already making another hub. However, I actually want a little bit more gearing range on this wheel because I am old and there's no other reason. So, I've bought this 7-speed cassette because I just can't do things normally, can I? Well, in today's video I'm going to be trying to mount this cassette, all 7 cogs of it, on this hub. Alright, so this is the cassette I've been using. It is using 11-speed spacing with cogs from a 10-speed Shimano Ultegra cassette, 12 to 28 originally. This one is 12 to 21. And what I want on this hub, sorry, I need to take it off. What I want on this hub, the end cap I've made is a little bit too thick for the cassette tool to enter. Anyway. What I want is this El Cheapo 11 to 28 cassette by a brand called ATA, which cost me less here locally than it would if I bought it from AliExpress. Unfortunately, as you can clearly imagine, since this is 7-speed, the spacing of the cogs is completely different from 10-speed. So, the first thing I need to do, I need to unpin the cassette and replace the spacers with something narrower, so I'm going to cram the cogs closer together. Just like that. Now, what I'm going to be using for shims are these bearing spacing shims, or bearing preload shims, which are built according to the European norm, or German norm really, DIN 9088. I have posted them in the description. Now, in order for everything to fit, at least I hope so, we need to discuss the actual sizes here. On the screen, what you see are the nominal thicknesses of 9-speed, 9, 8 and 7-speed cogs, which this obviously is, and if we measure, this one comes up to 1.75 millimeters, 1.74. Now, nominal thickness of an 11, 12 and 10 speed cog is 1.6 and this one is 1.63. There you go, 1.63. The nominal thickness of a spacer in a 10 speed drivetrain is 2.35 millimeters, this one is 2.36. For an 11 speed drivetrain, this is going to be 2.15 millimeters, like here. Please autofocus your device. Thank you. This one's actually 2.2, but manufacturing spread does exist. And for a 12-speed drivetrain, the spacer is 2 millimeters thick. Now, since cogs on 10 speed are 0.2 of a millimeter thinner than cogs on an 8 or 9 or 7 speed, then I need to use shims or spacers which are 0.2 of a millimeter thicker to compensate for the thickness of a cog. So I'm going to be using DIN 988 35 inner diameter, 45 outer diameter spacer, which should be reasonably stainless, although this is steel, so it's kind of heavy. And that should give me, with this cog, 11 speed spacing. Jesus, that took a long to say. But let's install everything and see what happens. Oh, I'm missing a spacer. Alright, 5 are in. Now I need to deal with these two. Unfortunately, these don't have a spacer, or the spacer is, well, integrated into the cog, so I need to use my turning machine, and I'm going to use it kind of reluctantly because while this is certainly not tool steel, this is going to be kind of hard, and my machine is a toy. Anyway, I need to shave off some material from here, and hopefully I'm going to find a Goldilocks size, which is going to make the cassette fit on this hub. Alright, a little bit of a problem cropped up. I was about to machine this, but I noticed that the splines there are actually quite narrow. So much so that if I shave the material from this face, I would totally destroy the splines, and as such the cog simply wouldn't work. So much for my plan. However, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this 13-tooth cog from the Ultegra, which was previously on this hub, and it's going to be unsequenced with the rest of the cassette. I'm going to show you how dramatic difference does that make to the shifting quality, and then I'm going to try to resequence this cog to the cassette, but later. Now let's try this cog without any modification on this cassette. I've opened the door to the workshop in order to let some light in. Anyway, here we are. This is the closest. Let me turn on the clutch. This is the closest position of the tension pulley to the cassette. So this is the optimal position because this is the closest it can get on the lowest gear. So I can't cheat my way to good shifting by simply running very close B-gap. Anyway, you can see the reason why I like this narrow driver. I can use any of the cassette cogs on any of the chain rings, and I get no noises, nothing, and it just works perfectly. Anyway, here we are. This is the cassette with the 13 from the Ultegra, which is not sequenced, and you're going to see the reason why it needs to be done. So 28, oh come on, 24, let's go some tension, 21, 18, 15, whatever it is, and now we're on the highest gear. Everything seems to work correctly. Now watch what happens when I try to shift to the 13. The issue is that HG and its derivatives, which are responsible for the smooth shifting on the rear, and you can see that it works brilliantly on all the other cogs. This system requires very specific angular positions of the cogs on the cassette and the chain rings as well in order to initiate a shift. Essentially, it allows for a shift when the chain is going to be transferred between cogs on the path of least resistance. One cog on the cassette has so-called release ramp, and the other cog, which is going to be shifted to, has a receive ramp, which is going to guide the chain on it. However, because this is not sequenced, the angular position of the 13 is not optimal for shifting from the 11 here. So the shift cannot be finished. It tries to initiate it, but the 13 is not receiving the chain. How can I, well, somewhat make this less of a problem other than, mingle with the shifter? I need to change the angular position of the 13 cog, of the 13-tooth cog, in order to make the transition, well, I'm not going to say optimal, but easier, and hopefully this is going to resolve this problem. So this is the 21 cog from the cassette I've been using originally. This is the reception ramp, somewhere over here. Oh, there you go. This is the release ramp, and as you may very well know, each cog on a cassette, or each cog or complete cluster, has this wider spline over here, which forces the specific angular position of the cog on the freehub body. If we file it down, we can rotate the chainring on the freehub, and as such we can try to time this cog to the rest of the cassette, which is not native to this particular one. So let's go about doing precisely that. Hail and well met to another day. I hope you're feeling fine, and I'm starting this with this greeting because a day has passed and I now vaguely only recall what I was talking about yesterday. Anyway, it has dawned on me yesterday that instead of just fiddling with this 13-tooth from Ultegra, I could have just used the 12-tooth from the same cassette, because I only had a shifting issue going from the 11 to 13, but 13 to 15 was fine. So if I used a cog that was meant to work with the 13, I'd be golden. And I guess it would be even better if I had this idea before I bought a replacement cog or the filler loose cog from AliExpress, because now I've got an 11 and 13 from a 10-speed cassette, which supposedly are timed. At least I hope they are. So I'm going to be replacing these anyway. But since I promised you how to resequence your cassette if you're doing something like this, and this is essentially doing a custom cassette, I'm going to do it right now. Off screen I have already dremeled out the timing tab on this 13-tooth, which is the necessary step in order to do the resequencing, because this thing will allow us to do something like this. On a Shimano freehub you have 9 positions of each cog if you file out the timing tab. And in order to resequence this cog, we need to find a position of those 9 where the chain has the freest path to the next cog or to the previous cog. And in order to do it in the easiest way possible, I'm going to show you something. Alright, so this is the Ultegra in its natural position. This is the cog from the ATA cassette on the same position. You can see that teeth on this cog are at different position to the teeth on this cog. And in order to resequence the cassette, I need to place the Ultegra in a manner where the teeth on each cog, on both of these actually, are shadowing each other. Essentially, this one is obscuring the other one entirely. And by fiddling with it, I have already found the position, and if I did it correctly, I think it's this one. Yep. This one is the best position out there, and if I place, this is the shift ramp on the ATA cassette, and if I place a chain over here as it would be shifted, it's going to be a little fiddly. Oh, there you go. If I place a chain on the Ultegra and on the ATA, it fits like a glove. So when the chain is going off the Ultegra, it will mesh with the 13-tooth, and since the position is the same, I envision, I posit, I think that it should also work with the original 11 cog. So I'm going to install it, and I'm going to install it to a bike, and we'll see what happens. But I think there should be at least one position from the, and I think I even found it. There should be at least one path from the 11 tooth to the 13 where the chain is following. Why are you doing this to me? Where the chain is following the least resistance path, and that should, in theory, will I find it? Am I wrong? What's the purpose of life? Oh, there you go. There is a path which allows for the least resistance. So let's install this to a bike and see what happens. Here we are. You can see the Silver Ultegra cog, or at least I hope you can see, is here. It has been resequenced to the rest of the cassette. We're going to check it shortly. However, first, full disclosure, I have changed the spacing of the cassette from 11 speed to 10 speed by adding 0.2 of a millimeter shim, one of these, between each of the black cogs over here, the largest ones. I initially wanted to use an 11 speed spacing because the freehub body is quite narrow, so I wasn't sure whether I'm going to be able to fit all of them. However, this caused shifting issues, which I resolved by simply adding the shim. It was kind of surprising because usually you can adjust 10 speed and 11 speed drivetrains on each other. Wasn't possible here. I'm not going to be trying to, well, guess why. After all, if you, well, do jank, you get jank. Anyway, here we are. Let's run through all the gears and you're going to see how does it work. Where am I currently? 21. So 21, 24, 28, 24, 21, 18, 15, 13, 11. You can see there was a little hesitation here, but the shift has been engaged. And we go to the 15 without an issue. On the other direction it also works. You can just witness that, you could just witness that the shift from 11 to 13 is possible. It's a bit more rough than you would expect, but as you just witnessed, it's engaging every time, so I have to say that this entire conversion was. And now you can witness the glory. As you can see, it is a 150mm hub, a very narrow cassette, 10 speed spacing, 1128 cassette size, and a custom tailored Shimano Z rear derailleur. And if you don't believe me, from this vantage point you can clearly see the 13 tooth from an Ultegra, which I'm going to be replacing with something from China shortly, well, as soon as it arrives. Anyway, I hope you've been entertained, you learned something, and see you on the next video.